Weekly Thursday Live. I'm excited to get started. If you are tuning in, let me know where you are tuning in from. So, this is my weekly Thursday Live, and if this is the first time that you watch any of my content, if you're new to my page and my timeline, my name is Dr. Megan Brainers, and I'm a Kingdom brand architect as well as a publisher for high achieving women of faith between the ages of 50 and 70. Right? I'm speaking to my established consultants, I'm speaking to women that have built businesses with God. They are in the trenches, and but they are co-creating it with Him. So I help high achieving women to write books that establishes the authority, as well as build legacy brands and to lead with spiritual authority in the market. I know that's a mouthful, but stay with me. So, if you just joined, just know that I do have a podcast as well, and you will see down below of how you'll be able to hear more about making impact and making income with your book. If you are a marketplace minister, if you are a high achieving woman of faith, if you are an executive, you want to get into the room. But today's conversation is a very much needed one. We need to have this talk because I'm sure you've seen this whole controversial topic going on social media. I actually just recently I made a post about it, and I also made just some short videos on it because this is a conversation that we need to have. So, as you can see by my subtitle, I'm speaking about why we should be charging for our services, marketplace ministers. If you know a marketplace minister, tag them in this live, and let's just have a conversation. I just want to make sure that I'm streaming live from all platforms that I intend to stream live from, and then let's have this conversation. So, I've been journeying with consultants, with coaches, with service providers, with authors, faith based specifically. And the reason why we need to have this conversation is as I've been journeying, the the number one thing that always comes up is, can I charge for my services? Can I use my spiritual gifts outside of the church? Can I, ask X amount for a program? And we always need to do some deeper inner work when it comes to that, because we've all come from different backgrounds, different family lines. We've been brought up differently. We come from different churches. We've had different doctrines and all of the above. But the word of God still stands. That is still, it should still be our blueprint. We go there, and that is our compass for what we do, how we show up in all the things. So when it comes to you offering your services, I believe you need to be clear, of course. Like I'm showing up in the capacity of an entrepreneur. I'm showing up in the capacity of an author, which essentially is your business. If you don't make that clear, then what happens a lot of times, people would think, oh, but she's ministering, or she's showing she's going to be flowing in the prophetic, or um, she is serving the capacity of a pastor and all those things. And that's why I always tell my clients, I always let them know, when you get invitations to speak or to do workshops, all those type of things, you need to let the organizer, or you need to let the person know, I'm coming in the capacity of a business owner, as an entrepreneur. These are my services. These are the offerings that I have. So perhaps you're multi-gifted, you are multifaceted. God has called you both to the marketplace as well as to the ministry field. And this is where the blurring of lines comes in, because if you are a marketplace leader and you don't make it clear, whether it's for speaking or whether it's for workshop or whether it's at church gatherings, that I'm serving now in the capacity of a ministry leader or whatever fivefold office that you are in. And knowing the distinction between saying, okay, I'm an author as well. These are my books. There's no discounts for my books. This is the price, and this is what you're going to be paying for it. Making that distinction to say, I'm an author, I'm an entrepreneur, these are my services, my book is $20. No, I'm not bargaining to say it's $15, right? I'm coming in the capacity of as an author. I've got a business that I'm running. And then, of course, you have the flip side where you are now invited to a women's event, or you are now serving, perhaps someone has invited you and you in a fivefold office, and they're asking you to minister on a certain topic from the Word of God, and you are ministering, which is something different. So with this whole Pastor Philip thing, I was really sitting with the Lord and say, you know what, I don't want to speak on any controversial topics, but I need to have this conversation because this runs deeper than what's being said out there. And I believe that this is an attack from the enemy to put marketplace ministers in a financial chokehold. And this is why I say that. So if you've got services, right, but you also attend the church or you also go to church gatherings, many times the people that know you in that capacity, they would want to support you. So they would say, oh, this pastor, some whatever, wrote a book, or they've got a podcast, whatever the case may be, let's support them. That is great, but that is not necessarily your ideal client, right? And I always say, if people from my sphere of influence, if they don't support me or if they don't buy my book, it's not a big thing because they are not my ideal client to begin with. But if you do have a supportive community and people are gathering and they are rallying around you, say you just published a book and they support you, that is absolutely amazing. But this is what I'm saying. Especially working with authors and helping them to scale and helping them to turn the book into a revenue generating asset. I'm speaking legacy right now. And a lot of times why marketplace leaders or marketplace ministers or kingdom authors, they are afraid to get visible is because of the onslaught. It's because of the noise. It's because of the persecution. It's because of the rejection. It's because of the judgment. So they would rather play small. And this is just something that even myself, I had to be confident in the fact that if he called you to it, then he will provide for it, because ministry, it costs finances, right? You need to pay for things. You need to pay for, event fees and all of those things. So it's not just, we can't just live on oxygen and fresh air. But having that distinction to say, okay, this is a business event. This is how much the ticket would be. Say, for instance, you're an author. This is how much the book will be. This is how much the event is going to be. For sure, there's a price tag to it. And I'm always of the belief those that would see the value in what you have to offer, they would, purchase it and they would sign up for it. So I would love to know, especially if you have been given a assignment from the Lord, He has given you the vision. When you step out and you operate in the giftings that He has given you, are you still fearing the rejection of man? Are you still trying to fit into a mold, right? Because I know that there's a people that He has called to disrupt the status quo. He's called you to be bold in the season. He's called you to be courageous in the season. He's called you to get visible with your message. And I believe just because there are, those that say that they are sent, they are kingdom messengers, and those that say that they are chosen, and those that say that they are ambassadors, you do get the instances where what they are portraying is not necessarily a representation of God. But I'm speaking to a people, and I'm saying for those of you that have been called by God to take authority in both the marketplace and the ministry, it is not an excuse for you and I to remain silent. It's not an excuse to say, oh, I'm afraid of what people will say when I do charge. It is not an excuse. That should actually be the indication to say God is calling more of His remnant to say, but hang on, He didn't just call me to the church. He's called me to the kingdom, which is much greater than the church building. He's calling you to media. He's calling you to do podcasting. He's calling you to do uh, start a digital magazine company, right? That is the only way that we will be able to take territory in those spheres of influences. And another thing that I've also just made peace with is the fact that no, not everyone will agree with your calling and with the mandate, but it is our responsibility to execute. It's our responsibility to use ideas that he has given us to fund the mission, to fund the nonprofit. And I'm going to say something really bold right now. And this is just something that I've seen as well. For all the naysayers and the stone throwers that say that has a problem with, you charging, whether it is you charging $20 for your book or you're charging $5,000 for a program, for instance. These are the same people that God has given ideas, that God has given a vision, but fear has crept in. So to the same standard, right, that they may be holding someone to say, no, but you are charging, why are you charging? These are the same cluster of people that need the funds to grow the ministry. So instead of, throwing stones, and instead of saying, you know, and saying that this is how it's supposed to be, that you cannot charge, what is the word of God saying, right? What has God spoken to you about territories that you are supposed to take back for the kingdom? So this is definitely an attack of the enemy against the mindset of, the whole around money. But I think, and I believe, and I know, and I trust that it is a responsibility for each and every one of us to sit with the Lord and really ask Him, Lord, where have you called me into? This is just a surface. Like I said, it's an attack from the enemy, but we're only looking at from surface level. But when you go deeper, it's so much deeper than that. And I know when God has called me to the marketplace, these are stigmas, these are labels, these are stereotypes that even in my own personal capacity, that I've just been bold about, and saying that if you are anointed for both the marketplace and both ministry, you don't have to feel that you have to choose either or. If he's called you to the marketplace, there's a reason why. But we shouldn't allow controversial topics. We shouldn't allow those that have misrepresented God. We shouldn't allow those situations to take us and to pull us away from our own prophetic destinies. And in closing, I'm speaking to kingdom authors right now, and I'm saying that even many of you maybe you have found yourself even on undercharging, whether it's for books or events or whatever the case may be. And I just want to say, like, make a prophetic charge and say that, could the reason be that you are undercharging is because you want to please a certain type of people? Is it because you fear that people's going to say, how dare that person charge? Or even whether it's for an event or whether it's for a function. And I want you just to have a mindset shift and to change your perspective and sit with the Lord and ask Him, Lord, what is it that you want me to do? How much do you want me to charge? Which nations do you want me to impact, right? Where do you want me to start a podcast? So instead of looking at or listening or being distracted by the noise, have that conversation with your maker and ask him, what is it that you have called me to do? Where is it that you have asked me to be bold? Because we're living in a time and season now where you need to be bold about your message, right? You don't want to be lukewarm. You don't want to be neutral. It's either, this is what I believe, or, I don't agree with this. And there's so many unpopular opinions out there. But at the end of the day, what has He called you to do? Where did He send you? And which areas do you still need to heal from? Whether it's financial trauma, whether it's what you've seen, whether it's controversial topics, just like what I'm speaking about right now. What has he called you to do? What is he calling you to build? Because whether we like it or not, building the mission, building the vision costs finances. So it has to come from somewhere. So can we just all agree that we all need to, take an account? And when we hear things like this on social media or on the news, wherever it is, we need to really just, go back and say, okay, what is it that the Lord wants me to do with this information? Perhaps I've been holding back. Perhaps I've watered my message. Perhaps I've been undercharging. Perhaps I've been fearing what people will say. Well, it's time. It's time that we say yes to the assignment and that we live a life that don't please man, but that pleases God. So if you want to hear more on this type of topic, I've got a podcast called Amplify Your Voice Podcast, and every Wednesday I release new podcasts. So this Wednesday past, the topic was you do not have to choose between faith and success, and you really don't have to. So the podcast guest was Prophetess D. Giles, an anointed woman of God. I encourage you to go follow it on Podbean as well as on YouTube. And then let me know, share some takeaways with me. Let me know how you found the episode. But I will see you next week, Thursday, same time, as well as same place. Bye bye for now.